Do I get a mic or do I gotta speak really loud?
You want to hold it or you want?
You don't have like a small thing. You should talk to our sound team, man. We'll get you one of those.
Yeah, that's a good point.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد يقول الله عز وجل الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in this verse that those who say when afflicted with calamity, we belong to Allah and to Him we shall return. This ayah is very powerful and there's a lot of depth in it, and it is a escape and a means of success for many of us. We turn to this ayah and we look at this ayah as one that would inspire us and give us all hope. Unfortunately, this ayah is also used as a spiritual scapegoat. Many times it is used to reinforce the idea that a person needs to submit to the situation that he or she is in, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, while we do and while we all understand that He is the ultimate controller of the universe, it is used as a means to sometimes put down people. Sometimes we'll even hear that we shouldn't have such feelings of despair, and having this hopelessness is a sign of deficiency or a sign of weakness in an individual's iman. And many times, and all of us have faced this, and there are different times in our lives that I'm sure every single one of us have faced, including myself, where you're nearing the end of the month and we're just not sure if we're going to make it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay that gas bill. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make that rent. Or maybe I don't even know if I'll be able to put anything else in that refrigerator. And I understand that this is more of a financial burden than any other type of burden. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He's going to test us in different ways. يعني الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس, that He says that He's going to test us with fear, with security. He's going to test us with hunger. He's going to test us, in our wealth. He's going to test us in our children. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ, and give glad tidings to those who are endlessly or forever patient or who have forbearance. So what happens is that when this individual has this feeling of hopelessness, we say to that person, don't worry, Allah has a greater plan for you. And while this answer itself isn't wrong, it might not be the most appropriate thing to say to that person at that time. This might not be what that person is looking to hear. And I know sometimes that's difficult to talk about, sometimes that becomes very difficult to accept. But I think it's very important for every single one of us to realize that there are different situations that we all face. No, sir, let him finish. استمر. أي شيخنا استمر يعني بعد إذنك جزاك الله خير. So many times we find and we don't realize that such people, and including ourselves, we've been in situations where maybe we know somebody who's ill, or and this has happened I'm sure to many of us. One of my friends, he was diagnosed with leukemia when I was younger, in the old days. And it was very traumatizing for me. This is somebody who I played basketball with, this is somebody who I went to school with, this is somebody who I grew up with. And I didn't realize how devastating a disease this was until I actually went to go see him and he was receiving chemotherapy. And I asked myself at that point, is the disease worse or the cure? And it was something that really struck me. And if someone had come up to me at that time and had said to me, yeah, have patience, that Allah has a greater plan. Yeah, you're right. But is this the way that we're supposed to deal with it? What is the purpose of this ayah? What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually intend when He tells us that to have patience, or that we will return to Him, or that we will go back to Him? I want to share an ayah with you, and then I want to spend a little bit of time of discussion of this ayah, and I want you guys to tell me what you think. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَمَسَّتْهُمُ الْبَأْسَاءُ وَالضَّرَّاءُ وَزُلْزِلُوا حَتَّى يَقُولُ الرَّسُولُ وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مَعَهُ مَتَى نَصْرُ اللَّهِ أَلَا إِنَّ نَصْرَ اللَّهِ قَرِيبٌ. That they were afflicted by misfortune and hardship, and they were so shaken that even their messenger and the believers with him cried, when will Allah's help arrive? Truly, Allah's help is near. What stands out to you in this ayah? I'll read it again, and I'll read it slower. That they were afflicted by misfortune and hardship, and they were so shaken that even their messenger and the believers with him cried, when will Allah's help arrive? Truly, Allah's help is near. Is there anything that stands out in particular in this verse? This verse it struck me.
Even the messenger.
Even the messenger. Even the messenger. Even the messenger what? What happened? What is he feeling?
Distraught.
He's feeling distraught. He's feeling distraught. And this really struck me. This verse, it really struck me. That how is it possible that you have a messenger of Allah? You have someone who is receiving revelation. You have someone who has direct communication with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator of the seven heavens and the earth. The one who has infinite and ultimate control over all things. And even this individual is asking what? Mata nasrullah. That when is Allah's help coming? Obviously, the way he's questioning and the way the believers are questioning, there's a couple different angles to it. There's a couple different angles to it. But even this is a sign for all of us, and it's a lesson for all of us. Another example. And as an example of our beloved Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. How many of you know the story of Badr? And what was the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam doing on the day of Badr? Can anyone share? What was his state? How was he feeling? Even when the companions looked at him, what were they feeling?
He was asking for Allah's help.
He was asking for Allah's help. To what extent though? Because he would normally ask for his help, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
He raised his hand all the way to God.
Allah. His hands were raised so high that the garment that was on it fell off his shoulders. And the companions were looking to him. And subhanAllah, the companions, they were looking to him. And they seemed to be more of a state of ease than he was, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When Mu'adh, he saw this, what did he do? When he saw the garment fall from his shoulders, what did he do?
He picked it up.
Well, he picked it up and he put it back up. And the other companions, they were less worried. They said, Ya Rasulullah, Allah is with us. And he was the one who was standing, he was the one that was making dua, he was the one with his arms raised to the sky. Why was he doing that? Why? Because he himself was distraught. He himself was worried. That if the Muslims died on that day, if the Muslims were killed on that day, if the Muslims were slaughtered on that battlefield, who would carry the message of Islam forward? Another example. During the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a woman was crying over the grave of her son. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went up to her, to speak to her, and told her, to have patience. So what did the woman tell him? said, you've not suffered like I've suffered. You don't understand. Basically, you don't understand what I'm going through. So what did the Prophet ﷺ do? He left. He didn't bother. And he went home. The companions, they went up to this woman and they said, do you realize who that was? Like, do you realize who you were just talking to? She was like, who? It was the Messenger of Allah. What did she do at this point? She got up and she ran to the house of the Messenger of Allah. And she said, Ya Rasulullah, I didn't know it was you. I didn't know it was you. Meaning that it's okay for me to talk like this to anybody else. But it's not okay for me to talk in this way to you. The Prophet ﷺ, he didn't scold her. He didn't reprimand her. But he used the opportunity to teach her a lesson. And he said, As-sabr and the sadmatul ula. He said that forbearance or patience is when calamity first strikes. And many of us have, again, we've faced and we've dealt with death. My grandmother died, I think it's been almost like 20 years now. And I still have pangs of pain. It still hurts. And I still remember. And all of us have these similar feelings, that there's somebody who's close to us, and sometimes even a pet. Sometimes we have a pet rabbit or a pet cat. And we still think about that lost pet, or we think about that friend, or we think about that aunt, or we think about that grandparent. And we get those feelings of sadness. And we remember them, and we wish that they were with us, enjoying or spending time with them. Or sometimes we have remorse that when they were alive, I didn't use the time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given me appropriately. And the reason that I'm mentioning all of these things, is basically to give us a lesson and to show that it's okay. Having these feelings of sometimes being lost, sometimes having this feeling of hopelessness, being distraught, remembering, sadness, these feelings are something that are completely acceptable. If the greatest of all mankind, if the greatest creation to ever grace this earth, Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, had these feelings, then who are we to deny ourselves that? But there have to be some restrictions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's mentioning these verses and He's telling us these things. And there is meaning behind them. And it's upon us to explore, okay, what are those meanings? What is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to take away from these verses? What is this sabr that He Azza wa Jal is talking about? I want to share with you another verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَعْبُدُ اللَّهُ عَلَى حَرْفٍ فَإِنْ أَصَابَهُ خَيْرٌ اطْمَأَنَّ بِهِ وَإِنْ أَصَابَتْهُ فِتْنَةٌ انْقَلَبَ عَلَى وَجْهِهِ خَسِرَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةَ ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْخُسْرَانُ الْمُبِينُ. There are some who serve Allah على الحرف, on the edge. If something good comes their way, they're satisfied, they're happy. But if they are tested, they revert to their old ways, losing both this world and the next. That is the clearest loss. So in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is defining for us what and how we are supposed to deal with these obstacles, how we are supposed to deal with these trials, with these tribulations, with these fitan, with these deaths, with this remorse. How do I deal with these things? And He's telling us here that there are individuals that they worship Allah al-harf, on the edge. And they are only appreciative when? When what? Because we don't want to be like this.
Good time.
When things are good. And what does good mean?
Everything in His favor.
Right, everything's in His favor. Everything that He wants is happening. And as soon as something happens that He didn't want to happen, what happens? Hmm.
Complains.
Right? He complains, that's part of it, right? And subhanAllah, how many of us are like that? How many of us are like that? Well, I remember someone on his deathbed. Well, I spent my life in the worship of Allah. Why is He making this happen to me? Allah protect us. Who are we to think that we deserve anything? If I worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala my entire life, does this mean I'm deserving of riches and wealth? Forget all those things. Those are worldly things. Even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to Aisha, he said, no one will enter paradise based on their deeds. And look at the fiqh of Aisha. Look at what she says. How does she respond?